Welcome back, English learners. There's a terrible story out of Minneapolis, Minnesota that recently happened. And in this lesson, we're going to read some articles and break it down. We're going to try to understand some of the vocabulary and the expressions from the perspective of a native speaker. And after the lesson, I'm going to post my notes on my Patreon, and you can download them for free. You just have to be a member. So go sign up if you would like the notes from this lesson. So let's start. Trump's immigration crackdown turns deadly in Minneapolis. A crackdown is a strong and kind of very quick effort by usually an authority or some kind of government to stop something illegal or something they don't want to happen. And the verb is to crack down on something. So, for example, Trump is cracking down on immigration, and this is Trump's immigration crackdown, which has turned deadly. Turn in this situation means become. This is a verb, of course. So Trump's immigration crackdown turned deadly in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It became deadly. The fatal ICE shooting in Minneapolis briefly explained. Fatal is another word which means deadly. So it implies that someone unfortunately died, which is true. Here we have an image of a police line, and it says, "Do not cross." When we say do not, it means you must not do this. Do not is a little formal because we're separating don't. Usually we say don't cross. But this is a police line, so we have to be a little more formal. It's a little stronger. We say do not cross. In casual conversation, it's totally fine to use don't. A woman was fatally shot by federal officers in Minneapolis on Wednesday, just days after the Trump administration deployed thousands of new immigration agents to the city. What happened? This is a breaking news story, and more details will almost certainly continue to emerge. What we do know is based on local reporting collecting video and eyewitness accounts from the scene, including multiple angles of the shooting. Before we continue, we know a woman was fatally shot. That means she died, unfortunately. Shot by federal officers. This is the passive voice. A woman was shot. Officers shot the woman. If we use the passive voice, we say a woman was shot by officers. This is very common in news reporting. In this voice, in this structure, we're saying that a woman is the most important information in the story, so we put it first. A woman was shot by officers. Normally, when we speak to each other, we use the active voice. The second example here. Officers shot the woman. Deploy is a word which means send. Generally, an official kind of send. So deploy the military, deploy immigration agents in this case. And the reason we say to the city after that is because we're sending them to the city. Structure in English is very important. So first we have the verb, then we have what we're talking about. Thousands of new immigration agents. Where? To the city. In our next paragraph, it says, "This is a breaking news story." Breaking news is a story that's new. And we use this very frequently in English when talking about news. But we have an expression when we have bad news. We can say to someone in a conversation, "I hate to break it to you, but," and this is when we're giving bad news. So, unfortunately, this shooting was fatal. The woman died. So, if we're telling the story to someone, they might ask, "How is the woman? Is she okay?" And then we give bad news. This is new information for the person. So we say, "I hate to break it to you, but she died." And then we give the bad news. Breaking news is new. More details will almost certainly continue to emerge. We can also say to come out, to be released, or to appear. All of these are emerge, and we like to use a lot of different words when writing articles and writing in general. We can see it says what we do know. This section right here. We can just say what we know. That's totally acceptable. So why do we use the word do? Well, this is the present simple. And the auxiliary for the present simple is do. So the question form, for example, would be, what do you know? And then you respond, what we know is. But when you want to show something has importance, when you want to emphasize something, you can put the auxiliary before the main verb. So that's why it says, what we do know. So we might not have so much information, but what we do know is, and now our attention is on this new information. This is a trick by native speakers. It's very difficult to get. So if you'd like lessons with me, I give private lessons every week on Microsoft Teams. You can go to my website and schedule your first lesson if you'd like. Let's continue reading. The shooting occurred as a vehicle attempted to drive away from federal immigration officers. At least one officer fired multiple shots at close range into the driver's side of the vehicle, causing it to crash a short distance away. The driver of the vehicle was shot and killed, Minneapolis officials and the Department of Homeland Security have both confirmed. It's a very unfortunate story. But we have a phrasal verb, to drive away. The word away means far, out of sight, or somewhere we can't see. Generally, that's what away implies. So, attempt means try. So if we read this again, the shooting occurred or happened as a vehicle tried to drive away, to drive far from federal immigration officers. In addition to drive away, you can also say drive off. Drive off is another phrasal verb which just means go away, go far, by driving, of course. The pronunciation for that word is vehicle. 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 If you say it fast, it's 3 sounds, 3 syllables. Vehicle. Let's modify another verb here. At least one officer fired multiple shots at close range. Where? Into the driver's side of the vehicle. The word into here means there was contact. So some kind of contact, but also it entered or it penetrated the driver's side of the vehicle. So we're combining fire shots And we're describing where by using the word into. Later in today's lesson, we're going to modify the verb fire and shoot with some other prepositions to show location. So wait for that. One more thing I'd like to mention is the Department of Homeland Security. To abbreviate this, we can use the letters DHS. And we have a special verb in English, which is stand for. So when we have an acronym, which is just these letters, we can say, what does DHS stand for? This is when we're asking what the meaning of these letters is. So we can respond by saying DHS stands for the Department of Homeland Security. Now, my question to you, and please write your answer in the comments, what does ICE stand for? Do you know? We're going to see it later, but if you know the answer now, please write it in the comments. Okay, we're finished with this article. Let's move to our second article. Very interesting. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey tells ICE to get the F, I won't say the word, get the F out after agent guns down woman. So, get out. Get out right now. Leave. Get out. Get out of here. Get out of here right now. We can, for pronunciation, we can combine out of into outa. And when we're really angry, we don't care about pronunciation. It's not important to us because our emotions take over how we feel. So we say, get out of here, get out of here, get the F out of here right now. And that's how we speak. So this man is angry. Get out right now, leave. After the agent guns down the woman. Now, I'm going to explain generally my perspective as a native speaker and why we use the word down in this situation. It's a little complicated, so if you want to hear the explanation, here it is. If you saw the video, the woman was shot in her car, and it was difficult to watch, but she was shot in her car and she died in her car in the driver's seat. So she didn't fall out of the car. She didn't fall down to the ground, but she was just in her car. When we use the word fall, fall already has the word down in it because fall is moving in the direction of down, right? So you can say something like the snow is falling. Here, when we describe the weather, like the snow, for example, we don't have to use the word down. It's very strange to say the snow is falling down because in this situation, the snow in the air is kind of more important than the snow on the ground. So we're separating the snow is falling and the snow is on the ground. Let's take another example. I was riding my bike and I fell. I fell off of my bike. In this situation, I'm on my bike and I'm falling off of my bike. So we can understand why I'm using the word off when I was on my bike. I was walking and I lost my balance and I fell down. Down is almost necessary in this sentence because it's telling us that you fall to the ground. When we have the word down, it's a stronger emphasis. It makes the sentence a little stronger. So yes, I fell, but I fell down. Maybe I got injured. Maybe I hurt my arm or something like that. extra emphasis. That's why we say the snow is falling. There's no emphasis. It's beautiful. It's something that we're talking about. The snow is falling. But I fell down. I got injured. It was a serious moment. So that brings me back to gunned down. The woman was gunned down. Of course, this means she was killed by a gun. But we use the word down because it's that extra emphasis and it makes the sentence stronger. It tells us it's a very serious moment. So this phrasal verb is very, very serious. And that was a long explanation, but down usually tells us that something is very serious. I fell down. You can say I fell, but I fell down. I got injured. This woman was gunned down. Very serious situation. Long explanation, but from the perspective of native speakers. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey launched a furious attack on ICE after an officer gunned down a Minneapolis mom during an immigration operation Wednesday, leading a charge of local Dems who blasted the feds and immediately said the shooting was not justified. So the mayor launched or released or started a furious attack on ICE. Now let's just look at this for just a moment. An attack on is something we often see when we're reading. This is a noun. But when we have the verb to attack, we don't use the preposition on. So this is a very small detail, but with the verb, we attack someone, or there was an attack on someone or something. So just for an example, you can say there was an attack on the city. There was an attack on the city, the noun. Or you can say the military attacked the city. Small details. And I do that in my lessons. I have a lot of exercises with these types of little details. So there was an attack on ICE by the mayor, a verbal attack, a furious attack. So this led a charge of local Democrats who blasted the feds and immediately said the shooting was not justified. A charge is like a lot of energy. So local Democrats blasted or criticized the federal government and said it wasn't justified. And he said, to ICE. The word to because he's communicating. So this is about communication. To ICE. That's how you start an email. To my friend, to my boss, something like that. It's a message, like send to someone. To ICE. Get the F out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here, Frey said during a fiery press conference after the deadly shooting. So he said, we do not want you here. But what about don't? Can we say don't? Well, remember, when we separate these words and pronounce every word, we're adding emphasis. We're saying, listen to my every word because I'm communicating something very important and serious to you. That's when native speakers separate the word don't. We do not want you here, compared to we don't want you here. There's a little difference. And he said it during a fiery or passionate press conference. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you're doing exactly the opposite. The blistering or very intense rhetoric from Frey, lame duck Governor Tim Walz, and other leaders in Minnesota led critics to accuse them of stoking the flames. There's a lot here. A lame duck politician is a very specific expression. And Governor Walz is going to not run for another term. So this is his last term as governor. That means he doesn't have as much power. And we're not going to see him again after his term is finished. So, because he won't be in politics anymore, he's a lame duck governor. Another example is the president, Donald Trump. Donald Trump cannot run for a third term according to the Constitution. So technically, Donald Trump is a lame duck president. And that's what lame duck means. And other leaders in Minnesota led critics to accuse them of stoking the flames. So there were critics that accused these local Democrats of stoking the flames or making the situation worse. Stoking the flames, making the situation worse. Stoke is not a normal verb that we use. This is an expression, a collocation. They're stoking the flames, usually with their rhetoric or their words. And that's usually when we use stoking the flames, creating problems, making things worse. Let's go to the next article. And in this article, we're just going to read the headline. ICE officer fatally shoots driver through car window in Minneapolis. Now, we have shoot and we have fire. Before we saw fire into, which means the bullets penetrated the car. But now we have shoot through. Shoot through what? Shoot through the window. When I explain through, I often think of a tunnel because with two, we enter one side and we come out the other. So this preposition is a little different than into, which means enter, contact, enter. Through is implying that it goes to the other side. It goes through, it penetrates, but from one side to the other. Shoot through an object, like a tunnel. All right, like a tunnel, that's my favorite example. But we also have shoot at. So the officer shot at the woman. Now in this case, we don't have this example shoot at because the officer killed this woman. But at represents a point. It's your focus. So when you're very focused on something, we use the preposition at. Think of look at. Your attention goes to one place. I'm looking at my monitor, or I'm looking at the person. We have the verb point. Point at someone. You're pointing to a point that you're focusing on. Okay, you're indicating and you're pointing at someone. It's a little aggressive. Angry. We often express someone as angry at someone. You can also say angry with, but angry at is much more common. Why? Because at is a point and it's very aggressive. I'm angry at my friend, or I'm angry at this officer because he killed the woman. So at represents a point. So if you shoot at someone, you're focusing on a point. And that's why we use shoot at, but we can also modify it with into or through. Little details are very important. Let's move to the next article. Trump said, ICE officer involved in Minneapolis fatal shooting seems to have acted in self-defense. Seem is a very useful verb. You can say something like, it seems to be. So for example, maybe it looks cold outside, but you're not sure. It's your perception. You can say it seems to be chilly outside. Chilly is very similar to cold, and actually it is pretty cold here in New Jersey. So it seems to be chilly outside. I can't exactly understand this, but I think it's chilly. But here we have a different structure. The officer seems to have acted in self-defense. Here we have something different. Seem, and then we have to, and then we have, and then we have the third form of a verb, third form, acted. When you are using seems to have third form, you're indicating the past. So it seems to be chilly outside is right now, seems to be. There's no have, there's no third form. But Trump is saying, I'm not sure, but in the past, the officer seems to have acted in self-defense. This is putting the situation in the past. He's not talking about what's happening now. He's talking about what he saw and what has already happened. Let's read the article. President Trump said he watched the video of an immigration and customs enforcement officer fatally shooting a woman in Minnesota on Wednesday, concluding the officer was acting in self-defense. Sorry, what does ICE stand for? Don't forget, write it in the comments. Remember, ICE stands for something. Practice. I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. First, Trump says, I have just seen, which means this happened a few moments ago. But we can also say, in English, I just saw. We can use the past, and this is extremely common. I don't consider this incorrect because I never use I have just seen. In my speech from day to day and everyone I know, we always say, I just passed. I just saw something. But it's a little more formal to say I have just seen, and I believe the British use this form too. But Americans, we prefer to use the past. It's very direct. I just saw. It's a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator. You are probably wondering what the word agitator means. But let's think for a second. We often see the ending of or in English. For example, refrigerator, toaster, blender, dancer, teacher, agitator. What is the function of a refrigerator? To refrigerate. What is the function of a toaster? To toast bread, probably. What is the function of a blender? To blend. What is the function or what does a dancer do? To dance. And what about a teacher? To teach. And an agitator? To agitate. What does agitate mean? To agitate means to be annoying, to cause problems, to cause trouble. So the president is saying that some woman screaming in the video was a professional agitator. Maybe. I'm not sure. He says the woman driving the car was very disorderly or without control, obstructing or blocking, and resisting or not cooperating, who then violently, kind of attacking, trying to cause harm or cause damage, willfully, intentionally, and viciously, so with a lot of aggression, ran over the ICE officer. We have another phrasal verb, ran over, or I'll say run over. A little trick in English. I have many tricks in English. When I see over, I always think of the word cover because they're very similar. You can even see over is in the word cover. So that's your indication. You have a car, a vehicle, pronunciation vehicle, and it's not running into the protester, but it's running over the protester. It's covering the protester. This is extremely aggressive. This would kill the person, I'm sure. So you can see, again, the car would run over the officer, not the protester. I'm sorry. This did not happen. If you watch the video, it seems to me that the president is lying in this situation because you're not going to see it in the video, but I'm telling you now, run over is like this. When a car strikes someone and goes over them, covers the person. That did not happen in the video. So believe me, that's the correct definition, run over, but you're not going to see it because the president is lying. So that's for you to judge. That's not my place. I'm just a teacher. So I think we'll stop there. That's a lot for this lesson. I don't know how long this has been, probably, I think a half hour, something like that. But anyway, if you want the notes to this lesson, I will leave them in a PDF for members on my Patreon. Please come join. It's free. You just have to sign up. And if you want to join the membership, I also release extra PDFs every Sunday that you can use to study. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.